Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Cormac Productions with my co-host Stacie, here to talk about From Season 2, Episode 7, Belly of the Beast, a title which I think might have double meaning.
They always do.
The episode's description reads as follows. Boyd and Christy seek to capitalize on a new discovery. Jim finds an unlikely ally in the volatile Randall. The episode is directed by Brad Turner. This is his third episode of the series, the last being episode 6 last year. The episode was written by John Griffin and Jeff Pinker. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go and check it out and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please follow and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and please subscribe to our channel. Shoutouts this week to Latrice, who thinks that the worms in Boyd, and who are potentially now in Ellis, acts like it gives you immunity to the monsters. Makes it so that the monsters will be less inclined to eat you because they don't want to die. And that's perhaps why they showed no interest in Boyd when he was still, standing right next to him. I mean, other than the fact that their beloved Smiley was laying there on the ground dead.
Right.
I think it's a possibility.
I mean, that theory's been going around ever since, Boyd was in the woods that first night that he got out of Martin's chamber and, the monsters didn't attack him then. And the question came up then, was he just hiding really well or were they avoiding him?
Right. They didn't seem to be avoiding him in the last episode.
They didn't seem to be avoiding him, right, until they were.
Right.
I don't know. It's everything's still so hard to speculate on at this point.
Shout out to longtime friend of the channel, Ashley Wright, who has generally been more of a Quantum Leap fan than a From fan. But I put him onto this series, so he's joining us now.
Yay, nice to have you here.
Absolutely, and he says that you are one of the best researchers in the world.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't see that comment. Why?
Well...
in regards to what are we discussing?
I think he was talking about the episode 2 podcast. I don't remember what you said in that podcast. But let me tell you, I've known her for a very long time. And she has frightened me with some of the things that she's been able to find out about potential love interests, so on and so forth. Her talents are seriously wasted.
Yeah, it's not stalker, it's research.
Right, exactly.
It is. I'm good at internet research.
And she should be working for the CIA and FBI, and the fact that she isn't is a serious waste of her talents.
Well, that's a nice compliment. Especially since, in our Quantum Leap podcast, we gave the research title to one of our other viewers.
That's right.
Who seemed to be doing better research. Kelly was doing better research than me on that, typically.
Another shout out for a Facebook poster, DJ Coster. I don't know if that's the exact pronunciation of the name. If it's not, I'm sorry. But DJ brought up a very good point that I'm surprised that I haven't up to this point. We've talked about the mental health of the people within the town, but we've never talked about what if these people actually get out of the town.
Right.
How are these people going to be mentally? And in my mind, they're going to be destroyed. They're going to have severe PTSD. They're going to have nightmares for the rest of their lives. They're going to be paranoid.
How would you reacclimate yourself to the real world after this?
Right. Especially living in Fromville, it's like you go to prison and then you have to readjust to the real world. It would be the same deal here. So I thought that was a very interesting point from DJ Coster. A shout out for Elizabeth Moy, who shared our podcast last week.
Thank you, Mrs. Lou.
Yes, we love Mrs. Lou and her tea. I also have an update on the fire that we talked about last week in Nova Scotia. Apparently, that fire has moved further west and is actually causing quite a bit of smoke pollution that we see even up here in Connecticut. Like right now, I can go outside, I can see the sun, and it's visible through smoke, which I actually thought was clouds, which is why it seems to be overcast right now. So this fire that started in Nova Scotia is starting to definitely affect us here. This is a pretty serious news item that I will keep you posted on. We will keep you posted on as we progress. And so let's get to your notes that you have.
I have one shout out as well. A shout out for Real Enigmas and Theories, who created a really awesome meme this week. It was Tom of Fromland Vodka. We're going to put that up in the video feed so you can see it. I actually tagged Reed Price into Real Enigma and Theories Facebook post about this, and he was very amused and went and spread it out himself through social media. And it's really great, when the Fromily, the fans, and the people involved in the show can get together and kind of, enjoy these things together. There was a word I was looking for, but I didn't find it just now. But Real Enigmas and Theories also has a YouTube channel where you can find From-related content, a lot of deep theories going on there. So go check him out as well.
All right. So, Stacie, I have actually been, and a couple more notes before we get to talking about the episode itself.
Yeah, always lots to talk about here.
I have been watching the show Lost, finally.
Yay, finally, Dave is involved in Lost. So how far have you gotten?
Early season 2.
Okay.
And basically, I'm hoping by the time that season 3 comes along that I'll finish the series.
Yeah, that's plenty of time.
And I won't be so lost when you bring up your references.
Yeah, all of my lost-isms are lost to you.
Yes, and the pun is very much intended. Now, I doubt I'm going to remember everything, and there's definitely things that you picked up that I'm not going to, per usual.
Yeah, but also, I mean, it's been a while since my last Lost rewatch, so there's things that might not, come straight to my mind.
So, given the fact that I'm very early in the series, I wanted to talk briefly about some of the similarities I noticed between Lost and this show, From.
Okay.
Well, first of all, Harold Purnell looks completely different. He's unrecognizable.
It's been a number of years, Dave.
I mean, we all get older, we start to get a little
what,
chunkier.
like 15 years maybe? Something like
Something
that?
like that, yeah. So
or more, maybe?
I was looking at him, trying to see the void in him, and I didn't, which could be a testament to what a great actor Harold Purnell is.
Yeah.
But also the fact that, as you said, some time has passed since that series and this series. So in both shows we have a leader. In Lost it's Jack, in Void it's From. It's interesting.
In From it's Boyd, yes.
What did I just say?
You said in Boyd it's From.
Okay.
We got you. We're following.
All right. Well, I'm glad somebody is. So, yeah, it's interesting that in Lost, we actually kind of see how Jack...
It's hard to talk about this stuff.
Right. How Jack becomes a leader. Like,
yeah.
In From, he's basically a fully formed leader from the moment we meet him.
Right.
But in Lost, we gradually see Jack become that leader that they need.
Okay, so in that comparison, I think that Jack's leadership is a little bit more like Donna's.
Okay.
Where their character kind of was pushed into being a leader.
Right.
As opposed to, having that just strong, natural urge to lead.
In fact, Jack didn't actually think he could become a leader.
No, he didn't want to be the leader. The same thing, same thing we've heard Donna say is, you know what, I don't know if I'm cut out for this.
Right. So we also have characters in both series that do not speak the language of the other characters.
Right.
Though in one particular case, that one of the characters that supposedly doesn't speak the same language as the others is a lie.
Yes.
As we eventually gradually see. We have a plot point that concerns a radio and trying to get a signal and trying to get to higher ground.
Right.
That happened multiple times so far in my watch of Lost. And it's also a plot point again this season in From.
Right. We're circling back to
in this very episode.
The radio signal.
There's a split between the people who want to settle down and make a life and the people who are trying to get off or out of where they currently are.
Okay, yeah.
In the case of Lost, Jack, he's trying to kind of settle in. And where there's people on the island who want to stay on the beach.
Right, so the caves versus the beach is comparable, yes, to the town versus colony house.
In the From case...
Good comparisons,
yeah. In the From case, Boyd is more the guy who's trying to leave. Jim, same deal, whereas Donna is trying to make a life here.
Right.
And we also have a character that deals with addiction issues in both series.
Yes.
And in the Lost series, it's Charlie. And in From, this happened up in season 2 with Mary.
Yes.
So I found that pretty interesting. Now, I'm not sure this means anything, any of this. but it's just interesting to note the similarities. And, you know, oftentimes, like we've said before, creators and writers, they tend to like to play in the same sandbox.
Yeah,
They like
sure.
to play with the same ideas.
And, you know, I'm going to say I don't think they're going to directly link these series, but I totally think some of the things that come up are meant to be nods to Lost. You know, like some things are just meant to be payoff to the fans without necessarily requiring you to know that in order to enjoy what's happening in the new show.
And another interesting thing, not anything related to any of the topic I was just discussing, is the fact that when I watch television now, there's a running commentary in my head.
Yeah.
Like I'm mentally making notes, like as if I'm going to make a podcast, even if I'm not going to.
Right. I think we missed the boat on doing an episode by episode of Lost.
I toyed with the idea, but I'm not sure that there would be
that's
any
been
kind of audience.
pretty done.
Yeah. The last thing I'm going to get to before we talk about the episode proper is the Amazon Prime issue.
Okay.
Now, when I woke up early
on Sunday,
I woke up early on Sunday before I went to work, which is my usual tendency. I tried to watch the show on Amazon Prime because it's usually available by then, and for some reason it wasn't. And I noticed that this was an issue for a lot of people.
Yeah. So in my case, you know, my husband and I watch at midnight or shortly thereafter on Saturday night as soon as the episode drops. And we were all prepared to watch it, and it wasn't there. And, you know, sometimes it's a few minutes late, up to a half hour, like that happened. So we were waiting, and then like an hour went by and it still wasn't available. And I was really upset. I actually had 2 other people who watched the show messaging me trying to figure it out. And I'm like, I don't know how to help you because I can't get it to load either. And yeah, it was very frustrating to go to bed on Saturday night without having watched it, because that's become, you know, my Saturday night routine. And then Sunday, I was like, okay, now I'm going to watch it, and it still wasn't there.
Right.
So that's when I found people talking in the From groups. There were, you know, a few different people actually who had reached out to Amazon support. And they said the episode's not going to be available until 11 p.m. Sunday night. And this is all Eastern time we're talking about here. And that just wasn't acceptable.
Yeah.
So the episode airs live Sunday at 9. So they're saying it's not going to be available until 2 hours after the live stream. Now, that's not going to work for me because I need to watch the episode once to enjoy it.
Right.
And then at 9 o'clock on Sunday, I watch it while live tweeting with the cast, which is an amazing experience. You can't do that and pay attention for the first time at the same time. It just can't happen. So I did what a lot of people were doing. Which is I unsubscribed to my MGM Plus channel through Amazon and signed up directly through MGM Plus, which is the same price, $5.99 a month. Or you can do an annual subscription through MGM Plus for like, I think $50.
Yeah, it was really not cool of Prime to do this.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know exactly what caused the change, but they're kind of acting like there wasn't a change, and I think that's what upset people the most. Right. Now, MGM realized what's happening. They kept making posts on their social media saying, we're aware of this, we're trying to fix the problem, please have patience. And it was something on Amazon's side because the episode launched, you know, within a few minutes of when it should have through the MGM Plus app. It launched through, I saw people saying like they were watching with their cable providers or their satellite providers. The people who subscribed to MGM Plus through those said they didn't have a problem. It appeared to be just the people who subscribed to MGM Plus through Amazon.
Yeah, very much boo on Amazon Prime. Like, you know, we had talked about the fact that a lot of people had issues just finding where the heck season 2 was to begin with.
See, then you get into that whole other confusion between Amazon Prime,
right,
and channels that you pay an additional subscription through Amazon, using Amazon as the service provider. So that's a different thing already, and that already confused a lot of people because season 1 was available just through Prime as a free show to watch if you have Amazon Prime, as a promotional thing, you know, to get more people to find the show. And then, you know, you had to subscribe to MGM Plus in order to watch season 2. Well, if you wanted to watch season 1 when it originally aired, you had to subscribe to Epix, which is MGM Plus, but they changed their name, which is a whole nother level of confusion people had. But no, the show was never an Amazon original. That's not what it was. They just put the show, season 1, on Amazon as a way to get more eyes on the show. And that's actually not available anymore. They took season 1 down off of Prime. So if you want to watch the series, you need to be subscribing to MGM Plus. I don't want to hear anything about all the people talking about where you can bootleg the series from. Stop it. If you like the show, support the show, pay MGM for their content. That's all I'm going to say about that. I had one other.
Okay.
Before we get to the episode, are we ready for mine?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about the food.
Yes.
Okay, so there's been so many discussions in the Facebook groups that I'm trying really hard to be, to come at them from a place of education, because people don't know better. But I think we need to address it on the air, because it's getting to me that these topics keep coming up. And this is the people in the Facebook groups who are saying, where are they getting their food from?
Mm-hmm.
The one that I think the original one that I had the biggest issue with is I keep seeing people ask, well, where are they getting so much pancake mix from?
Right.
Okay. So if you don't know this, you do not need to buy a box of pancake mix to make pancakes. Pancakes are made out of flour and water, and usually additives such as eggs, butter, sugar, things like that for flavor.
Yeah.
But rudimentary.
Close enough.
Yeah. Flour and water is going to give you a bread product that you could call a pancake.
Right.
Okay, so you don't need pancake mix, you need flour. And do you know what flour is? It's ground grains.
Okay.
So how are they getting flour? They're making it.
Right.
You don't need to go buy a bag of Gold Bond to have flour. You need to be growing grains, which we know they're doing farming. So there's lots of different grains you could use to make flour. The typical flour that we think about when we talk about flour comes from wheat. So they could be growing wheat. Or they could be growing oats, rices. A lot of different nuts can be ground down to make flour. So basically anything that is a grain, they could be making their flour out of, and then in turn using that flour with their eggs and these other things that they are harvesting to make pancakes.
Yeah.
And for sweeteners, we know they're using the fruits that they have. Elizabeth Moy specifically said on Twitter that she likes to use blueberries in her pancakes.
There you go.
There you go. And we know they have the blueberries, and that's how they're sweetening and making this, something edible.
Yeah, it's pretty clear if there were an apocalypse and suddenly the food markets were shut down and so on and so forth, that a lot of people would just straight up die. Yeah. And, I'm not going to lie, I'd be one of those people.
Right. Probably. I don't know how to farm, but I understand, basically how it works, that food comes from plants and animals. That's where we get food. All food is either a plant or an animal at its core.
Yeah.
And they have all kinds of plants. And they have some animals.
We have seen animals. We have seen them planting.
Yeah, and that's the thing today that really, maybe put this in my notes today is someone was like, well, how are they getting the eggs and milk? And there were so many comments of people backing that statement up. And, again, I'm not trying to be mean, but listen, if you don't know by now where they're getting the eggs and the milk, you need to start the series over.
Right.
Because it's been mentioned a dozen times. And if you're missing that point, you're missing the important stuff too.
Right.
And it's going to go right over your head when we finally get answers. And I think this speaks directly to all the people who are still posting and complaining that, oh, we're not getting any answers.
Right.
You're not paying attention to see the answers. They're not all going to be, handed to you Scooby-Doo style.
Right. No, that's the thing about this series, and we've said it before, this series doesn't necessarily handhold you through everything.
But, where are we getting the milk and the eggs has been handed to us Scooby-Doo style.
Right.
So, again, if you missed that point, I don't know. We learned all the way back in, episode 3, I think it was.
Yes.
When Jade and Kenny were talking. We don't know where the animals come from, but we've got animals. We have cows and chickens and goats.
Yeah. Pretty much whatever this is somewhat providing for these people.
Yes.
They want to keep them alive.
As far as the fruits and vegetables go, the fruit trees and the bushes and plants had to have already been there. They couldn't have just planted them. It takes years to harvest fruit from a fruit tree. So they have all of these plants already growing. And then as far as what they're farming, you know, potatoes and things like that, that's real easy to grow. If somebody came into town with, you know, they'd just come from the grocery store and they got a 5-pound sack of potatoes in their car, within a month or two, you could turn that into a whole field of potatoes.
Right.
You know, and that's what they're doing. They're farming. And people have been eating for thousands of years before we had modern industry and grocery stores.
We did somehow manage to make it to this point.
Yeah.
And a lot of that time was without grocery stores.
And that's just my rant that, you know, food doesn't just come in a package. I mean, that's not how it works. That's the end product that you see at the grocery store. It comes from somewhere.
Right.
And the places it comes from is nature. That's how food works. And specifically also the tea. Why do they drink so much tea? Because tea is plants and water. That's what tea is. And any plant that's not poisonous, you can make tea out of. Including lots of wild weeds.
I'm going to actually have to try that at some point.
Yeah, well, I mean, look up how to do it safely. But dandelion tea is a big thing. It's got healing properties. You can make tea out of clover or honeysuckle. And I was just looking all of this up today to provide examples to somebody who was confused how tea works. I read birch trees, spruce trees make great tea. You can even use pine needles to make tea. And of course, any type of fruit or vegetable plant can also be used to make tea. And we know they have those, like we were just talking about.
Right.
Obviously, they have fruits. So you could use the fruits themselves or the byproducts of the plants to make tea. And, you know, Mrs. Lou probably has dozens of varieties of teas she's been working on.
And you know what? I kind of want some tea now.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lou, I will take some tea. Thank you.
We'll have to start drinking tea.
Yes. Okay, so anything else on that subject?
No, I think I covered it.
All right. So, yes, thank you. That was very educational. This is why you should listen to us, because we occasionally educate the masses. All right, so Stacie, your thoughts this week on this week's episode.
Okay. I love that we got some of the pairings of characters that we got. So we mixed it up a little. We got to see some new little groupings that we haven't seen either this season or at all. And a lot of great conversations. People are finally like communicating and talking, and we're starting to see the fruits of that. And it's great. And I'm confused that there's still people complaining that there's no answers. I feel like we got so many answers in this episode.
Right.
And we'll dig into all of those individually. But I think it was great. I think the story is progressing in a great way. I loved so many scenes in this episode. And like we're getting somewhere, right? And of course we're getting new questions as well. That's the point of a puzzle box show.
Right. Yeah, I thought this was a pretty good episode. The first time I watched it, for some reason, I didn't like it as much as when I watched it on second view. I think, as you mentioned off air, that it had something to do with the whole Amazon Prime issue.
Yeah, if you're a little salty going in.
Right. But yeah, when I watched it the second time, I had a greater appreciation for it. Maybe seeing it as a whole the first time.
Right.
Like where it was going. Like I had a better understanding of what they were doing.
Yeah.
Than I did when I was watching it. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent episode.
So something awesome happened in this episode.
Oh, yes.
Bacta and Jade both finally changed their clothes.
Hey, you know, I also noticed that there was a costume change on Julie as well. So that's
Julie's
that's
been changing. Like every, I mean, we're in block shooting, so every 2 episodes is a new shooting, and you know, a couple of those blocks were the same day, so there wasn't a lot of outfit changes early in this season. But Julie and Tabitha, and I think both the men in that family as well, tend to change their clothes more often than most characters.
Yeah.
Donna changes her clothes pretty regularly. Fatima and Ellis do. But some characters just never change, right? And Jade is one of those. He was wearing a dress shirt when we first met him. Then he put that T-shirt on early and kept it on until this episode. And, you know, Bacta's only been there a few days, but we were complaining, why didn't you at least take your name tag off? She finally changed.
When Bacta showed up, I didn't even recognize her. I thought she was a new character.
It took context of her conversation for me to realize who she was, because my eyes were so trained that she's in that uniform.
Right. I'm thinking maybe she should have kept the name tag so that I knew who she was.
Have they called her a name within the series yet?
You know what? I'm not sure.
I don't think they've said her name out loud.
No.
And I still don't think Randall's been given his name within the show either.
Nope, I don't think so.
Which is so weird to me that we're almost done with the season and they still haven't like called these characters by their names.
Mm-hmm. Other than Tilly, who we haven't
We finally
seen
got Tilly's name. Tilly's missing
episodes.
in this episode, and Sarah is still missing as well. I think those are our only two main cast members we didn't see.
I don't have a problem with Tilly not being here, but are they going to do something with Sarah? Like something significant?
I hope so. Maybe Sarah and Tilly are together right now.
Maybe.
Because we've seen Colony House in the last 2 episodes, but we haven't seen Tilly. So maybe she's with Sarah.
Perhaps keeping her company.
For better or worse. I don't know.
Yeah. All right.
And with back to changing her clothes, I just want to mention that Angela Moore did reply to me on Twitter and said she was very happy to see that costume change as well.
I'm sure she was tired of wearing the bus uniform.
Yeah. We said it's probably not comfortable. I'm sure it actually wasn't.
Right. Her new outfit looks much more comfortable.
It was a very spiffy outfit, and I had notes on that when we see her, but she's wearing like this flowery top and a sweater, and she's even accessorized with like a gold necklace and earrings. And I was questioning, did she have that jewelry on already? I don't recall.
I mean, maybe she brought it with her on the bus.
Yeah.
For some reason, just wasn't wearing it.
Yeah, but I find that a little funny that so many characters accessorize, because, if I was trapped here, I probably wouldn't be looking my best.
No, I mean, I'm not trapped there, and I already don't look my best.
Right.
So.
Like, I don't put jewelry on unless I'm, like, going out and doing something other than my wedding rings, you know? When I'm just at home, I'm not putting on a necklace and earrings just to sit here.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they do this to feel human.
Yeah,
to feel better in this situation. A lot of ways in which to feel better, if you're suffering from depression, is to get a new outfit or to put on some makeup or make yourself look better than you usually do.
Right.
And it definitely does help with your mental health, for sure. So I'm sure that's why some of these characters do that. Yeah. And someone like Jade doesn't necessarily care about that at all.
I saw a Facebook thread about this where, should we be paying attention to jewelry? Because, like, there's been a lot of jewelry that's been kind of featured in shots. Like a lot of people are wearing necklaces, and some of them do seem like they might be important. Discussions, and I'm not going to get into the details, but on a couple of the different necklaces that Fatima's been seen wearing. Jim's bracelet, of course, is a plot point. I mean, he's wearing that now. Christy was wearing her engagement ring around her neck. So I mean, maybe the jewelry does have a bigger significance. You never know.
All right, so let's get into it, unless you have something else.
Nope, let's go.
Okay.
Let's go. 27 minutes, not too bad.
Yeah. The episode begins with Fatima and Christy. They're still talking about Fatima possibly being pregnant.
Yeah, and they're in the basement of the school having this conversation.
And it pretty much seems that Christy is pretty convinced that Fatima is in fact
pregnant.
She
said she's as sure as she can be. And I was questioning, like, well, did you have an actual pregnancy test? Like, which is what she had asked for? Or, did you do some kind of blood test? Because she was like, I'm as sure as I can be. Does that mean maybe you're wrong?
It's possible.
Yeah, it feels like they should have went into, like, this whole discussion a little bit more. Especially with what we learned from Fatima later. Did she tell Christy this stuff? Like, I don't know. I feel like their conversation was cut off. And they need to get back to it. Right.
Fatima doesn't want to tell Ellis yet.
Yeah.
And they are interrupted by Kenny, who is saying that the sun is coming up. Christy asks Fatima, because I just called her Fatima again, what's going on, and she doesn't want to answer the question. Upstairs, we see Boyd, Kenny, Fatima, Ellis, Elgin, and Mary is there.
Yeah, everyone who spent the night in the clinic.
And we see Smiley's corpse laying outside.
And they go out to investigate. Now, I thought just Boyd and Ellis were going to go out. It's not Boyd and Ellis. Boyd and Kenny were going to go out. They were the first two out the door. I think I'd have stayed back and waited to see how that interaction went before I went out there.
Yeah.
But the whole team just kind of trots out.
They all took a little field trip to see the Smiley monster laying there. And Christy is shocked, saying Boyd actually did it. He killed one of the monsters. That's still an open question. The question is posed, what should they do? And Kenny suggests lighting it on fire and being done with it.
Yeah, which was a little extreme.
Right. But it is the best way to ensure that it goes away.
I mean, I don't know. It's possible that burning it could just release whatever's in him into the air, and now everybody's infected.
Right. So Kenny, while I think has a pretty strong point here, also isn't completely right either.
Yeah.
Boyd wants to bring it inside, and Kenny's like, tell me you're joking. And no, he's not.
He's not, and Christy backs him up.
Yeah, she's pretty quick to defend him.
The plan has been made. They're going to bring the body inside and do an autopsy.
And
I agree with Kenny. You should not have brought it inside.
Well,
however, I do back up the autopsy.
Right.
Why are we not doing the autopsy outside?
I mean, there's no real reason.
That's my stance.
They could have brought a gurney out and then put it outside.
Right.
Maybe they just
go behind the building.
Right.
You know, even in that little shed. There's a little shed nearby. Go do it in there if you want to be indoors, away from eyes. But you did not need to bring it into your clinic.
And it's interesting that Boyd, by the way, ends up leaving the decision to Christy whether to bring the body.
Well, because it's, a medical decision. He supports her being the person in that role,
Mary goes to get a sheet to drag the body in, and Boyd sends Fatima and Ellis away. Ellis doesn't want to go, but he, was nearly stabbed to death in the last episode, so he really should not be around.
So Boyd's reasoning here is, if you don't go back, it's morning. People from Colony House are going to start coming to check on you to see if you're okay. And we don't want people seeing this. They're trying to keep this under wraps. They say that nobody else needs to know for now because they don't want to cause a panic.
Right. And he asked Elgin if he's all right, which I thought was a little weird.
Elgin was very distracted, which is not atypical for his character.
No. And Elgin says that he is.
Yeah, and so he ends up going back with Fatima and Ellis to pretend like everything's fine, and all that happened was we did some medical attention to the stab wound. And
Kenny ends up arguing his point more, saying, hey, look, this is evil, and you're going to take evil into your house.
Yeah, and you could really see right here, Kenny and Christy were at odds.
Yeah.
Not only do they have opposing opinions on what they should do, but it felt really personal that they were arguing with each other.
Yeah, Christy was quick to shut him down, but not only that, she was really testy with him about it at the same time.
You could tell they were not happy that they had opposite opinions.
And so Kenny loses this one, and they take it inside. And credits.
There we go.
When we come back, we see Dale and Donna. And they're talking about, the whole stabbing thing. And I'm glad we addressed this right away.
Yeah, so we're at Colony House. Donna's returned. Clearly, she's been caught up on what happened overnight. And Dale asks her, what are you going to do with me?
Put me in the box?
Right, like they do down there in the town. Right. Is that what we are now?
Dale does not seem to be taking any responsibility for his actions here.
He sounded like he was sorry. He admits
I'm sure he's
Ellis is a good kid. He didn't mean to hurt him. You can also see Donna feels guilty because she thinks that it's her fault that she wasn't there, and that's why this happened. If she was there, she'd have been able to control Dale, and this wouldn't have happened. At least that's what she thinks.
Maybe that's how it would have played out. He says there's too many people here, and that sooner or later they're going to have to make hard choices.
Yeah, so he's sticking by his idea that basically he's saying, let's kick these people out.
Right.
He wants to let them go fend for themselves and die if that's what it means. And because he doesn't want to share his food and he doesn't want to share his roof. And I've said this before, Dale feels entitled. He's been here for a long time, longer than Boyd. And he doesn't think new people have the same rights as he does to survive.
Right. they can just fuck off and die. That's cool. But Donna checks him saying, hey, look, right now, I wouldn't be talking about people making hard decisions.
Right.
Hint, hint. Maybe you're going to go in the box if we do have to make those hard choices because you just tried to kill somebody.
Yeah. And, it's so fun to watch this scene and remember that these two actors are married in real life. And it's got me my mind going places, with theories. Well, maybe Donna and Dale are secretly having a love affair.
Yeah, maybe. It's possible. We haven't seen any evidence to contradict that. Other than their somewhat rough relationship, but then again.
But that could make it fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Donna. So she ends up leaving the room.
She leaves. There's a guard at the door.
She locks it. Tells an armed person that nobody is to go in or out.
Yep.
So we don't exactly know what they're going to do with Dale yet, but they've at least addressed.
And she doesn't know, and she's basically like, "Well, let's see how he is. Like we don't even know if he's alive or not at this moment."
That could play a factor in how you punish Dale for sure.
Of course.
Donna encounters an angry Bacta who, like I said, didn't even recognize her.
Yeah, it took me a second, yeah.
She ends up asking, what she's going to do about Dale. For now, Donna seems inclined to wait and see what Ellis is doing, and reassures Baghdad that they are safe, despite what the Dales of the world may make her think. Fatima and Ellis return, and Donna...
Just right before they come in the door, I just loved Elizabeth Saunders got to call her husband a fuckwad.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
She said, you're safe here, and you're one of us. We all think you're one of us, except for that fuckwad over there. And I just loved that. And I was like, that's amazing that you got to do that, Elizabeth Saunders.
Yes, and you got into a conversation with her on Twitter about that, too?
Yeah. Cliff Saunders, Dale, had said, Elizabeth has a lot of practice calling me names.
I'm sure that's absolutely
and
true.
she said this was, I think she said something along the lines of, this is one of the advantages of working together, is they get to have these moments like last season where she got to punch him, and she gets to be a little abusive to her husband on air through these characters.
Yeah, who doesn't want that? Fatima and Ellis return, and Donna helps them upstairs. And we cut to the Mrs. Wu house. Ethan is helping her cook and arguing with whether the pancakes are ready. Jim enters and tells Ethan not to argue with the master.
Yeah, and this is the only scene we have with Mrs. Liu this episode, is she's cooking the pancakes, and obviously she knows better than you, Ethan.
Right.
Just enjoy them.
Ethan wants to go see Victor, but Jim says no. Julie offers to take him, but Jim says nobody is going to Colony House. Tabitha says it should be okay, and Jim wants to talk to her outside about that. Jim's beef is with her contradicting him.
Right. She's upset that she undermined him. As soon as he said no, she was like, well, yeah, I think it's okay. Here's the deal. You're both doing that.
Absolutely.
If you think you need to talk about this, talk about it before you both make the decisions. So no, I don't think she should blindly be backing whatever the heck her husband says.
Right.
But also,
she specifically ends up asking, do you want to lock our kids in the basement?
Right. She's right here in that, they can't just lock them up. They've covered this already.
Right. Jim loses me in the scene, with one single line. He calls Victor an emotionally stunted freak.
He does.
And Donna, not Donna. Tabitha checks him on this correctly. Hey, look, that emotionally stunted freak saved our daughter and took care of me.
Right. Tabitha accredits Victor to saving Julie's life by putting her through the tree the night of the Colony House attack, and as well as helping her get out of the tunnels.
Right.
And she's right. She has a relationship with Victor now. She trusts him. She knows that her kids are safe to be around him.
I got what, last season when Jim had a problem with Victor, it was totally understandable.
Right. Jim's first interaction with Victor was that they thought Victor kidnapped Ethan.
Right.
Now, of course, Victor was just, Victor and Ethan were just going off together.
I think they had one interaction before that where Ethan and Victor were talking in the diner before Jim showed up and shoved him out the door. I think that might have occurred before that kidnapping that you're referring to.
Yeah, I think it was just a matter of them talking to each other kind of weirded Jim out the first time.
And like I said...
Because,
that's understandable.
It's understandable that you're weary of your 8-year-old child having some kind of relationship with a grown man that's a stranger.
Right.
But guess what? We're not strangers anymore.
Right.
We are a community here.
Yeah, we should be well past Jim having this animosity relationship with Victor at this point.
And the problem is Jim's been so obsessed with all of his obsessions that he hasn't taken the time to make relationships with anybody.
Right.
He doesn't know these people the way they're all starting to know each other.
And I'm not sure that Jim should be calling someone else an emotionally stunted freak.
Yeah,
I think that's a little...
he brings up the gun, so he's stuck on that instance where Ethan had gone off into the woods with Victor. The parents caught up with them, and Victor pulls a gun.
Right.
Now, the reason he pulled the gun is because the dog seemed like it was going to attack Ethan.
Right.
And the rest of them. That's why he pulled the gun. He wasn't pulling the gun on Ethan, but from Jim's perspective, this man's dangerous and pulled a gun on my family, which I get. But again, he hasn't taken the time to move past that and get to know Victor the way Tabitha has.
Right. And he brought up the gun, and I'm like, we're still on this?
Yeah. Well, we haven't seen the gun again since
season
that
one
scene.
Shit. Why are we talking about this now, Jim? And it really, he made me angry here. There's a reason why Victor is what he is. And it's because he's been here since a 10-year-old boy
right.
by himself.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yes, he's emotionally stunted.
Right, and you would be too if you were in this situation.
A reason why he is a good friend for Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every scene they have together, which I love, they're peers.
Right.
They really are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Jim in the scene is really, we can see he's really still stuck on his whole conspiracy theory about this being a government experiment.
Some kind of simulation.
He's like, well, that's what they want you to think, that he saved your lives.
Right.
And Tabitha's over him at this point.
Right.
And I agree with her.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, so am I.
Your theory might be true, fine. But you're too obsessed over it.
And not to the point
deal with it. You got to deal with the day-to-day of what your reality is.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be to the point where he's taking it out on Victor.
Yeah.
Like, Victor saved a couple of your family members' lives. So you should be over this. And what does a guy need to do to earn your respect?
Right.
Saves your wife and your daughter, and that's not good enough for you? Like, yeah. So Jim kind of pissed me off
So
here.
he's talking about the voice on the radio. You know, they're listening to us. And Tabitha brings up a point. What makes you think that voice was even human?
Mm-hmm.
It could be the monsters. It could be some evil entity.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you heard a voice doesn't guarantee that this is just some experiment done by humans.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There could be something else going on here.
And, you know, she's telling her husband, that terrifies me.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, she needs him to, like, be present in the day-to-day and help her with this. And he's not.
He's off
checked
in
out.
La La Land, for sure. I'm almost going to compare him to Boyd. Like, back when he was kind of obsessed with going into the woods.
Right.
Which, granted, was a good thing. But he was also ignoring his wife, who had mental health issues at the time. And maybe if he'd been a little bit more present, what happened wouldn't have happened.
Exactly.
Which is a guilt that Boyd carries. So, I think this is a direct comparison to that. Like, hey, don't ignore your family, because that could lead to bad things.
Yeah. We also got in the subtext of this conversation that Tabitha has already talked to Jim about both the caves and the sleeping monsters. Because they talk about that. So she has told him, which is a scene we didn't see. But it just sounds like they hadn't, at this point, told anybody else that information.
Mm-hmm. So she says at this point that she's going to go inside, eat pancakes with her family, and he's welcome to join. Not really sure what Jim would have done if he didn't see Randall's drone flying around.
Yeah, so we're surprised by this drone flying overhead. There's this, like, energetic music playing, and I just had the thought that this would have been such an amazing, surreal shot if we hadn't been spoiled by the drone in the promotional materials. Like, I already knew a drone was coming. I kind of wish they'd kept that a secret, because this moment would have just been awesome without knowing that that was coming.
Yes. So Jim sees that Randall's playing around with the drone, and we cut to the clinic. Boyd asks Christy what she needs to do the autopsy.
And at this point, they've got Smiley in the boiler room down in the basement where Kenny's dad was killed. That's the room they're in.
Right. And I think maybe that's why Kenny is having an issue
He's having
now.
a harder time, yeah.
Because he's not really fully articulating what his problem is.
And I don't know if he's necessarily realized it all either. It's just there's a lot that he's having a hard time with. Now, I guess if they were going to bring it inside, the boiler room's a good place to do it. It's more secluded than just, say, one of the clinic beds.
Right.
But, yeah, I don't know.
So Kenny says he asked about the worms, and asking if the worms are actually dead, which is a question that I don't think we know the answer to, even at this point, or even after this episode airs.
Right.
Like, do we know?
We don't
exactly
know, because the worms are only visible when they choose to be, right? Like, they weren't always swimming around in his arm.
Right.
But yeah, we start to see here what Kenny's actual fear is, which he'll name in a later scene. But he's like, what about the worms?
Right.
What's going to happen when you cut into him?
Right.
Are worms just going to come out and attack us?
Right.
Because this feels like...
Or become airborne, or...
Right.
You know,
this
who knows?
feels like a really scary unknown. And maybe we should stop and think about what could happen.
Right. Mary goes off to puke. Christy tells Kenny and Boyd that she's going through withdrawal, which, hey, doctor confidentiality.
Well, no, you know what? I think it's good that she admitted that right away. We don't need any more secrets.
I guess you have a point there, but I don't know that it's totally necessary to tell everybody what's going on with Mary.
Well, the people that
kind of personal.
The people that are in the room and, like, seeing what's happening, I think it was good that they're all on the same page.
I gotcha. Boyd like starts to ask, hey, is there anything that we can do to help? But Christy cuts him off and says, go get my saw, go get my gloves.
Right.
Like, let's get this done and over with and get that thing out of our house, basically.
Yeah. But you brought it here, Christy.
Well, that's true. But she wants to get this done and over with and, out of the way.
Yeah. So Kenny says he's going to head off to the tool shed.
And he's still continuing to act weird while he does so.
Yeah.
So he goes off to do what Christy needs of him. Her. Christy needs of him. Yes, I said that right. The first time. Jim enters the bus. Randall apologizes for the drone, but Jim says it's all right. Jim thanks him for trying to help his wife.
Yeah.
And Randall gets this little dig in, like, well, she wasn't down there, so you basically just got people killed for no reason.
So,
which, oh, by the way, is a point that I made myself, too.
Right, okay. So, I love this scene. We haven't really spent a lot of time with Randall.
Mm-hmm.
All we know about Randall is he's an asshole.
And that's all that we still know.
Right. But I felt it, like, important to note that even though he's, like, the biggest butt that we've met in this show, he's the only one acknowledging Brick and Tom's death.
Right.
Nobody has acknowledged them at all, that this tragedy happened and these people were killed because of this incident. Like, they weren't killed because they were trapped outside at night. They were, but, like, they weren't just outside like the other bus people. They were trying to help you save somebody's life, and now they're dead.
Right.
And nobody's mentioned that. And it's this guy, Randall, who's like, yeah, you got them killed.
Right. By the way, I'm starting to actually kind of see eye to eye with some of these people who are saying that the Matthews are kind of the reason why a lot of bad things happen in this series. Like, he caused both of the major events that happened in the season finale.
Jim, I'd kind of supported the Matthews before, but I'm losing him especially real quick.
Right. Well, I mean, just what he said about Victor in this episode, it made me go, you lost a lot of goodwill with a single line that he's earned for me this season.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So we learned from Randall that the drone was supposed to be a gift for his nephew's birthday. So this is something he had in his luggage. So, I mean, he had a really good reason for being upset when the Colony House resident was going through his stuff.
Right.
Because, this drone does feel important.
Still, there are better ways to handle things
than punching somebody out.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Randall tells him to fuck off, and what else does he want from him? He said, you're welcome. And Jim recommends a walk.
Yeah.
And that he could use the drone for something.
Well, at first he's like, come with me. Let's take a walk in the woods. And Randall's, being his charming self and was like...
He must have read that book about how to win friends and influence people because, he's got some charm to him for sure. No, he doesn't. He pretty much told Jimmy sounds like a pedophile. Right. Trying to lure him into the woods. And Jim asks, "What the heck is wrong with you?" And I've been asking that for some time.
Yeah, he's got a chip on his shoulder.
Some issues, for sure.
But Jim's able to kind of pique his interest by saying, "Well, what if I told you that drum could help you get home?" And so now he's interested. Right. And this reminds me a lot of last season when Jade and Jim were trying to work together.
And we all know how that worked out.
Jim wasn't interested, though, until Jade was like, listen, I got a plan that might get us out of here. So I feel like we're all kind of like-minded here a little bit, right? As far as, like, that will to do what we got to do to find a way home. Yes. And that willingness to work with the people that you're maybe not going to get along with the best, but maybe to working together you can solve something.
I'm very curious to find somebody that Randall would get along with.
Yeah, well, I still have hope for Randall. I think he's a good guy under it all. Like I said, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got some anger management issues, but I think he could be a great character that we could love if we give him a chance to kind of get acclimated and befriend some of these characters, if that's possible.
I'm still waiting to see the humanity within this character. Maybe we got a little bit of it here, but
I think he's got some smarts.
Yeah, he's not an unintelligent character. He definitely demonstrates that later.
He is going to be important in whatever happens with this story next. Important in a, coming from what he has to offer, not important as in, the way Sarah or somebody might be important. Right. Like built into the communications or whatever. I think he's more important in a utilitarian way.
Gotcha. We cut to Victor at Colony House. Ethan surprises him, but tells but Victor tells him to go away again. Ethan asks, "Why are you being so mean?"
Yeah,
and Victor
I
says,
thought we were friends.
"Yeah, it's for your safety, because people I care about die."
He says, bad things happen to people
Right.
who are my friends, but to be fair, I need to point this out. Victor, bad things have happened to literally every person you've ever met, except for the people that are currently still alive.
Right.
Whoever's come here in the last 40 years, however many people that is, they've all died.
And not all of them have been your friends.
Yeah. So it's not the fact that they're your friend that causes them harm, but moreover, he feels it when they're his friend. He feels grief, and he doesn't want to get close to anybody because he doesn't want to have to feel sorry for you when you die. So that's what it comes down to. Victor's being selfish.
Yes.
By not wanting to be friends. He's not trying to actually protect the person, because I don't think that they mean you're in danger if you're my friend.
Right. No, that absolutely makes sense. That's a good read. Ethan asks, what's the point of being friends if they can't actually be friends?
Yeah.
Solid point there for
Ethan.
Ethan's
ready to leave, disappointed.
And then Victor says something about the orange marker being dry.
He said the orange marker was dry. It was a really bad gift.
Ethan takes this as a rejection.
Yeah.
But this is a awkward olive branch.
Right. Absolutely. This is Victor's way of like trying to communicate and trying to reach out and having. This is like his excuse for something to say. You know.
Right. Yeah. And he's not very good at that, obviously. But
obviously,
so this is the best
because like I said before, they're peers
Mm-hmm.
in this conversation, just like they were when Ethan gave him the markers. You know, they're still on that fight.
Right.
They're two friends, two little kids who having a beef.
Yes.
And that's where they are.
It's funny because every scene between these characters, especially this season, has been gold.
Yeah, I love it. I love their friendship. And always, Ethan is the more mature one. So yeah, he apologizes that it was a bad gift. Like, you can tell he's just heartbroken because he just wants to be friends with this guy. And then Ethan, you know, or Victor reaches out again. He's like, well, you know, you could help me measure the trees if you want.
Right. What is Victor doing exactly here?
The same thing he was doing when they first met each other, which is measuring how much the trees have moved.
Okay.
Remember last season he told us they moved 4 inches.
Right.
So they're doing throughout this episode some more calculations to figure out how the trees have moved.
Gotcha.
Which I don't think he's going to get any real answers out of, but that's what he does to try and keep track of this environment around him.
Makes sense. All right, we cut to Mary and Christy. Christy takes care of Mary despite Mary insisting that Boyd and Kenny need her out there.
Yeah.
She eventually ends up going out and seeing Boyd, who's changing his bandage.
Yeah, she helps him dress his wound on his hand.
Boyd tells her that Mary will be okay, and because she's got Christy. And Christy says that when they first met, Mary and Christy specifically, not Boyd and Christy, just in case that's not clear, that Mary was actually sober for a year.
She said she was sober for almost a year when they met, until now when she disappeared and she started using again. So I'm questioning, how long were they together?
That's a good question.
Before Christy disappeared. Long enough to get engaged.
Right. Well, I mean, just, you know, you could be like together for 2 months and get engaged.
Right. That's my question. Like, how long of a time frame
kind of
are we talking about?
I would say that's not advisable, but people do that.
Right. So Mary was sober for a year, plus however long she was with Christy. And then sometime during the last 6 months Christy's been gone is when she started using again.
Boyd says that it's not on her, and they get into a discussion saying that maybe Kenny is right, and I think Kenny has a point, that they shouldn't be doing this, about, you know, like, they should just stop doing this. Christy asks Boyd if he's scared, and Boyd says that he is, and she says that she is as well. We cut to Jade, who's working on something. What is exactly Jade doing here?
Jade is working on Tom still, and I think he's kind of given up that Victor knows more. I think that he kind of thinks he's gotten all he's going to get out of Victor, so he's moving on. And his new obsession is going to be making the booze. So he's working on the still, and he specifically says that he thinks he found a way to improve the process so the booze does not taste like stomach acid.
Nice.
So he's putting all his efforts now into bootlegging.
Tabitha comes in, knocking, and Jade says, "Hey, it's a bar. You don't have to knock."
Which is funny, because just in the last episode, he was like, "Bar's closed. Tom's dead. Like, this is my house now."
Can you, like, make up your mind? Be a little consistent here?
So, yeah, exactly. I think Jade might be a little bipolar.
He's something.
He has completely switched over now, and now he's going to be the new bartender. He's taking over the bar. He's making the booze. He's excited about it. As we mentioned, he's wearing new clothes. He changed. Stay
tuned for next episode when he closes the bar again. Jade says Tabitha can help him with this project that we were just talking about. But Tabitha doesn't want to. She wants to ask him a question about what happened the other day, which was when Tabitha had seen the ghastly children, and they were saying Angui.
Right.
And she started freaking out, and then Jade happened upon her.
Yeah, Jade's the one who found her walking back from the junkyard. So yeah, she said this is why. So she came to the bar to talk to Tom. Not to talk to Tom. He's not there. Talk to Jade.
I wish we could talk to Tom, but unfortunately we cannot. But hey, we could talk to Katri, so why not Tom?
I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for Tom to make an appearance. Okay, so she wants to know, why didn't you seem surprised at the way I was acting? So she picked up on the fact that he was pretty chill with the fact that she was acting super crazy.
And he ends up saying, I like it better when you're not yelling at me.
Yeah.
Which was okay. So what is he talking about? I don't specifically remember Tabitha yelling at Jade.
Oh, sure she has.
I'm sure she has, but I don't remember seeing it.
I mean, I think the whole family's kind of yelled at Jade. They were all pretty over him. I don't know, maybe Ethan hasn't, but Julie's definitely yelled at Jade. He kind of rubbed their whole family the wrong way several times.
I mean, he rubs most people the wrong way, and not in the same way that somebody like Randall rubs people in the wrong way.
Right. Jade's just kind of what's the way to say it? Like he doesn't think about other people's feelings, and he doesn't mean it.
Right.
Like Randall means it. Randall knows he's an asshole.
Well, I think Randall's deal is that he has like walls up and guard, he guards self.
Jade just is bad at interacting with people. Right. And I feel like he's trying to do good, but he can't help himself. But with that said, all of the scenes between Jade and Tabitha, like we got to see a really different side of Jade during this episode.
Oh, yeah.
And they've got some chemistry.
Yeah, more than a few people have said that, forget Jim, maybe these two.
They're being shipped. Jade and Tabitha, absolutely. And I don't know, I didn't feel that at first, but by my third playthrough of this episode, which is when I took these notes, I'm kind of on board.
Yeah?
He was a much better person talking with her. And
well, I would say that Jade has actually seemingly grown as the season has progressed.
Yeah, and again, it could be, like I said, he's bipolar and he's just on the opposite end of that right now. That could be what it boils down to, is he's a different person right now than he was a few episodes ago. But yeah, I feel like they really had a good connection here. And if nothing else, I think they're going to become really good friends.
That would be really nice to see. So Jade says that he'll tell her what she wants to know. Oh, actually, first he talks about the Civil War soldier.
He says he's having visions too, tells her about the vision he had when he was with Jim, and admits, well, I didn't really tell Jim what was going on, but here's what was going on. I was attacked by a Civil War soldier. And she's just like, what?
Right. And he says that, hey, if you want to know more, you have to help me with this.
Yeah, and you have to promise not to yell at me.
And I make... all women promise that if they want my help or something from me, because I don't like getting yelled at by people.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it happens.
Yeah.
I'm yelly. I'm guilty of that.
Your family is, generally speaking.
Yeah.
You come from a yelly family. So we cut to Randall and Jim, who are walking, and he explains his theory to him, and they end up going to the RV from the very first episode that the Matthews arrived in. Jim climbs in, still with a broken rib, I might add, and he reacts in pain to that, and so does Randall. This is where he's storing the radio that from last season's Colony House.
So we remember earlier in this season, he retrieved the radio from Colony House. when he had like kind of this argument with Donna, and we find out this is where he brought it to. He didn't bring it to the Lou house or the clinic or wherever he's been this season. He brought it to the RV. So he's been coming out here and hanging out in the RV. It's kind of like his little lair where he's sitting here thinking up his conspiracy theories, and now he has an accomplice in that.
And basically Jim wants to use the drone to get the radio, the antenna specifically, at a higher altitude, than maybe
so
even
that
you
they
could with
can,
County House,
so that they can put out a even better radio signal.
I'm not really sure that this is a good idea given what happened last season.
It's not a good idea, but he can't see that. So last season, you got a signal out, and you've learned that wasn't helpful. So I'm not sure why he thinks getting a signal out is the answer. I really thought where we were going with this was we're trying to get video footage. Now, a lot of drones have cameras built right into them.
Right.
They haven't really said if this one does or not. I mean, I'm sure video will come into the discussion when they actually do this as well, but that's what I think of when I think of a drone, is you're using it to record video of, an aerial view.
Right.
And I feel like that could be really helpful if they get an aerial view of their surroundings.
Absolutely.
Even if it's just about scouting and finding new things out there.
Someone on Facebook brought up, well, why not just use a cell phone camera? Right. But at the same time, all the cameras at this point are dead.
Except remember,
we can't actually charge
we did
now.
learn how to use the electricity.
And actually, that's kind of interesting because nobody seems to be taking advantage of that at all.
Okay, so, like, the town kind of fought back when they did that, and we've got.
Well, was it them doing that or the?
It
radio?
was the whole thing.
Right.
It was the whole thing. I think the town didn't like what they were doing. But remember, they were trying to harvest like all of the electricity with like dozens of lamps, and the town, for lack of a better way to say it, made all of those light bulbs explode. Now, poor Clara, has a patch over her eye because she got glass in her eye. So I can see, like, maybe you don't want to, like, just harvest electricity that way every day, just to, use the hairdryer. But if your plan's already to keep fighting back and to do this thing that the town's not going to like anyways, it should be pretty simple to find a charging cable, because everybody must have brought one with them. Not everybody, but there must be plenty of them around. And splice it into a lamp like we did the hairdryer and charge a phone.
Makes sense.
It's doable, and we've learned that that's doable. So I don't think the fact that the phones are dead should stop us from trying to get a video.
Makes sense. But he is not going in this direction as of right now.
Right. He's simply stuck on radio signals, which I think he's not seeing a bigger picture here.
Randall thinks the radio is trash, but Jim thinks he can handle that. Randall isn't so sure, and Jim asks him if he thinks he's crazy. Randall doesn't. In fact, Jim is one of the few people that is actually making sense to him.
Yeah. Which isn't a good thing.
No, probably not. But he wonders why he isn't asking the obvious question. Someone in the town might be involved. How else are you going to keep the experiment on track?
Right.
And this is leading to lots of discussion on Facebook about who the mole could possibly be.
That discussion's already been ongoing, but yeah, it's kind of in the forefront now. And Jim kind of acts like he hadn't thought of that before, but I'm pretty sure he had alluded to that himself at some point, so I'm not sure. But any discussion about the mole, I'm having a hard time with.
Yeah.
Because of our other podcast.
Yes.
So we spent all season of Quantum Leap talking about a mole, and all I want to do every single time we talk about a mole is just say, Ziggy's the mole!
Right. I'm pretty sure Ziggy did not do it in this case.
Look, you never know. This whole thing could be Ziggy. This whole thing could just be a simulation Ziggy's running.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think of that. Maybe this is like an offshoot of Quantum Leap.
It could be. It could be.
Okay.
Probably not. If that happens, we're in a really good place to be the only people capable of talking about it.
Absolutely. Well, let's do it then. Okay, so Julie checks in on Fatima and Ellis, and nearly gets run over by Donna, who's bringing them food.
Which shows us Tabitha won that fight earlier. She sent her kids to Quality House.
Right, yep. Well, yeah, I mean, basically, it was kind of a standstill, but I think it's pretty clear that Jim was the loser in that conversation. And he should have been, to be honest. She says she needs to make sure Victor and Ethan aren't building a spaceship, which I wouldn't be surprised if they were actually trying to do.
Which is another mention that, some people have been tracking the idea of, are we on another planet, aliens involvement. So this is another kind of mention of something celestial. Also in this scene, they told her she's welcome here anytime Donna comes in. She's got a tray with tea on it.
Yes.
So tea wasn't mentioned in this episode, but we did see tea. And I think every episode either mentions or shows tea.
As well
to bring up the tea. But yeah, she's like, I got to make sure they're not building a spaceship. And I thought that was just funny because, of course, they're doing something crazy, you know?
Right. And actually, it's kind of funny because she says this, but she doesn't actually end up checking on Ethan.
She doesn't because she gets sidetracked. We'll get to that.
Yeah. Ellis questions Donna, saying, hey, there's a food shortage on. Donna says it's temporary and minor, and some people were like, well, is Donna changing her mind here? But I don't think so. I think she's just downplaying it, and plus she wants to help Ellis get better.
So a lot of people who have been suspicious of Donna and think she's in on this, which, I mean, if somebody is in on it, she's a good candidate because she's been here longer than anybody except for Victor. So nobody really knows the truth of her backstory, right?
Right.
But yeah, people are suspicious of her saying, oh, she's saying it's temporary. Must be because she's controlling it.
Right. No.
I don't think that's the case. I'm pretty sure she's just trying to be optimistic. She's trying to not spread fear, even to the people who are in on the discussion about the food shortage.
Right.
She's just trying to say, we're going to get through this. It's okay.
And later, there's another scene where they were like, oh, this is proof that Donna's a mole. Because of how she was acting, but again, I didn't take it that way.
Yeah,
we'll get to that point later. But yeah, so she says she feels responsible for saying that the Dale stabbing thing never should have happened.
Yeah, so she apologizes, and Ellis has some snarky comeback, like, yeah, of course it was your fault that another grown man stabbed me.
I mean, Ellis is being snarky here, but he's right.
Right, of course he's right, and this shows you like what a great relationship they have that they can tease each other this way, even in a serious conversation, and they're both like fully on board with what they're actually saying to each other.
The second time through watching this episode, I noted Fatima's outfit, and I kept it in mind for a later scene in this episode that we will get to. But Donna tells Fatima that she did good.
She did good getting him down to the clinic. So does that answer your question?
I think so.
Last week, your big question was, what would Donna do?
And I think that does seem to suggest that I was wrong in saying that she would just let Ellis die. But
I still back up my comment that I think maybe it's only such an easy decision for her.
Because of Ellis.
Because it's Ellis. I think she'd have let Dale die if the tables were turned.
I would let Dale die, and I think I made that same joke last episode, but still. Okay, so
Julie is on her way to go find Ethan.
Yep, she goes, exits Colony House, and Elgin calls for her.
Who's, again, sitting on the barber chair on the porch.
Right.
They meet the same way they did the first time, which she makes a joke about. That.
And Elgin doesn't seem to
get it. It goes over his head.
He tells her that she said that if they ever need to talk, and he says that he could very well use a talk at this time, and they decide to go for a walk.
Yeah, he says, you got time for a walk? And she's just like, sure.
And she completely forgets about Ethan.
Yeah, Julie.
Oh, okay. So, the actor Elgin does this thing with his jacket where he, like, straightens it out and looks back and, like, I'm gonna get some Julie. Like, I don't know if that's what the writers are intending here, but that's the way the actor played it for sure. 100%.
Yeah, so Sarah, I think at this point you're out of luck.
I don't know. I think he's going to go back and forth, honestly.
You think so?
He
didn't go to Sarah to talk.
No, that's true.
I mean, he didn't go to... I mean, he may have gone to church looking for her and couldn't find her because maybe she's off in a faraway tree somewhere. We don't know where she is.
You never know.
But he seems interested in confiding in Julie, and she seems very interested in being the person he confides in.
Mm-hmm.
And so she showed us right now, again, that she's a really crappy babysitter.
Yeah.
Okay, how many times has she been, the one to watch Ethan and bad stuff's happened, and she was given another chance today?
Well,
she said she'd take him here. She even said she was on her way to check on him. And the second Elgin says, let's take a walk, she's on board.
Big, beautiful eyes at her. And
okay, Julie, you could have at least gone, like, inside and told Fatima or Donna or Clara, anybody you found inside to keep an eye on Ethan.
Right.
Let somebody know that you're leaving him alone and that he needs to be watched.
Yeah. Earth to Julie, Victor is not the greatest babysitter.
Victor's not the greatest babysitter, and she didn't even tell Ethan, like, hey, I'm taking a walk, I'll be back in a few minutes.
Right.
She just leaves. Bad judgment call.
She's been better this season, but this is a total fail.
Listen, last season you were saying how this whole family's really bad at taking care of Ethan, and I blamed Ed and Julie at that point, saying the parents trusted her.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick to that. Julie is terrible, terrible, terrible babysitter, and she needs to stop being put in charge of her brother.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so we go Boyd and Elgin.
Back to the boiler room. No,
Boyd and Elgin.
Boyd and Elgin.
That's in my notes, but that's totally not true.
No.
That would be Boyd and Christy and Kenny.
Boyd, Christy, and Kenny are in the boiler room.
Elgin is not performing an autopsy.
No, Elgin's not there. Remember, he left and went back to Colony House. He knows about this, but he's not there.
Boyd asks how he can help, and she says, catch her if she falls, making a joke, and Boyd doesn't seem to appreciate the jokes. I'm not sure why Boyd and Elgin have a problem with jokes this week, but I guess they wouldn't get along they wouldn't get along with me because I'd be making dad jokes at this point.
You know, which brings up that theory. Did we mention this on air last week, or did we just talk about it? That some people think Boyd and Elgin are the same character.
Yeah.
Which I don't believe that at all. But I mean, what you just said, that they're both kind of in the same boat about not joking. I don't know. That's a point in that direction. So they got their gloves and they're gloving up. Now here's my take on this scene right now. Why is the gloves the only form of PPE they're using?
Do they have anything else?
Well, you got cloth.
Yeah, you could definitely use them for masks.
I would be making a mask. Maybe that's just the world we live in today coming out. But if you're about to cut into this scary thing, and you don't know what's going to happen, and there's this, pathogen inside, and
Christy should have absolutely thought of that.
I'd be covering my mouth and nose. If you have anything, even remotely close to safety goggles, this is the time to wear them. Sunglasses, something to cover your eyes so the worms don't jump in. I mean, I'd be like covering myself. As much as possible, not just wearing rubber gloves. And on that note, Christy still has on her favorite shirt.
Yeah.
Her Gerhardt Trucking.
For this, I would definitely remove
Now, listen, last night, crazy stuff happened, right? She did surgery. Why didn't you take off your favorite shirt at some point? Between all this blood and autopsy and all of this stuff happening, she's still wearing that favorite shirt.
Come to think of it, why doesn't that shirt why isn't that covered in blood at this point?
Right.
Yeah, now that you bring that up. All right, so Boyd ends up opening the shirt, and Christy starts to cut in. Yeah,
she says, I'm going to make the first incision, and Smiley jumps. And we get a jump scare.
A little growl. Christy says it's fine.
She goes, it's fine. I just hit a nerve. But Kenny,
he freaks the heck out.
Kenny hasn't been on board with this at all. He took this little jump scare. That was his final, I'm out of here.
Right.
He bounces.
Right. Christy goes after him. Boyd is originally going to offer to go, but Christy decides to do it instead.
Yeah, so Christy follows Kenny outside.
Kenny reveals that his problem isn't the monsters, but what killed the monster, which is the worm.
He's like, okay, the scariest thing I've ever seen is dead. And whatever killed it is inside of it. Right. That's what I'm scared of.
Kenny thinks this is a huge risk, that they're risking their life. Christy says it's worth it, that they're fighting back. This is a way to fight against the monsters. So she's finally expressing the thing that we haven't really verbalized yet, which is maybe we can harvest whatever killed him and use it against the other monsters. And Kenny says, or it could just kill you.
Right.
And I noticed that Kenny doesn't say it could kill us.
Right.
He specifically says that it could kill her.
Exactly.
Even though he's in the same room doing the same thing.
Right.
So his concern is not for Boyd. It's not for himself.
Right.
It's specifically for Christy.
Yeah, and she says she's tired of putting broken things back together. She really thinks this is a chance for her to do something helpful and productive other than just being the person who's bandaging the situation.
Right. Chrissy says she's willing to take the chance, and
she says she's terrified.
Yeah,
she admits to him.
She's terrified.
Of course, I'm terrified. We don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
You're right. This is dangerous and scary. But she says, as long as I have you by my side, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, we're in this together.
We're in this together, remember?
And then Kenny says, not anymore.
No, not anymore.
This really hurts Christy.
This moment,
he's obviously referring to Mary's presence.
I feel this moment for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 100% see where both of them are in this moment, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So she's feeling totally betrayed and crushed because she sees him as like her best friend.
And I mean, that's what they are first.
Right.
Right. And not romance second.
Right. And they never got there. Right. Remember, they were almost kind of about to get there.
Mm-hmm.
In his head, they were there.
Right.
She wasn't there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So to her, he's like her best friend, and they're there for each other.
Right.
And the idea that he's not going to be there for her just because they're not going to be romantically involved is something she can't wrap her head around.
Now, he says this in this moment, but he has been there for her in little moments throughout the season.
Of course, he is there for her.
He has been the good guy.
So here's what's happening from Kenny's perspective, which I totally see as well. Kenny's standing up for himself.
And it's
in this moment, he's saying, no, it's not like me and you against the world, because it's not me and you, because you didn't pick me. And he says, he brings up, he knows what they're talking about. They're not talking about the monster. They're talking about Mary.
Right.
And he brings up that elephant in the room and says, I'm happy that she's here for you. Really, I am, because I just want you to be happy. But, I love you. He admits that to her. He says, I love you. And he says, I can't watch you do something that might kill you.
And I'm proud of Kenny for saying
exactly.
All this. Like, this is not something...
He is standing up for himself and saying, you know what? Basically, I feel like he's saying, I have to take care of myself, and I have to have my own opinions, and I can't just blindly follow you.
He was already doing that with Boyd, and it burned him.
Right.
And he can't do that anymore, and I don't think he should.
Now, I do think he was being hard on her.
Well,
by basically saying, no, I'm not here for you.
Right.
There's a medium here, right? That neither of them are hitting.
And I think that Kenny ultimately ends up realizing this. Chrissy ends up leaving pissed. Kenny ends up throwing the gloves on the ground, because I think at the end of the day, he's a good guy, and he knows he's screwing up here.
Right. And I think the problem is they've never talked about it. They haven't had a chance to calm down and talk about their situation since Mary got here.
And this is the first time that they're really getting to do that.
And it's a bad time for it.
Right.
Because it's on top of another argument.
And there's never going to be a good time.
There's never going to be a good time.
Not in this town.
No. So, bottom line is, he's feeling hurt because he thought he had a chance with her.
Yeah.
She's feeling betrayed because she feels like her friend is totally not there for her anymore.
Right.
And at the core of it, they really do disagree about what to do with the monster.
Right.
And putting all of that into one conversation, of course, it didn't go well.
Right. Yeah. And it's a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
Really, it's a great scene between the two of them. Heartbreaking, but definitely a really good scene. We have Mary walking through the clinic looking for Christy.
So yeah, she got up, and I had a pretty good idea what this was. Right from that moment, I was pretty sure.
I wasn't totally sure what we were watching.
Also, as soon as she got up, I got horror movie vibes. They started playing like horror movie chase music.
Yep.
She just can't find anybody. So she goes downstairs to the boiler room. The table's empty.
Whoa.
And like I said, we get this chase music coming up. She runs back upstairs. She finds Boyd standing in the door, and he's like, are you okay?
Right.
And then we see back down the end of the hall,
Smiley.
Smiley is up and smiling.
Jamie McGuire making his appearance in this episode.
Yes, which...
I don't know whether the corpse on the table was played by Jamie McGuire. I don't think that was necessary to put him all in that makeup just for that.
Right.
But he definitely makes an appearance.
Yeah, as his human form, Smiley.
Right.
Just walking down the hall and smiling. Boyd tells Mariel to run, starts shooting at Smiley as he approaches. Mary looks over.
She sees the music box.
She sees the music box and hears it on the table, and she's a little confused. And then Smiley gets right up in her face. He attacks, and she wakes up. It was a dream.
A dream.
But was it a dream?
Premonition?
So, here's my thought. Was this a dream? Or is this a full-out vision? The way that, say, Tabitha dreamt about the lighthouse.
Well, it's interesting to note that before now, the only person that was seeing the music box was Boyd.
Right.
And now Mary is seeing it.
Right.
And then we will see someone else see it later in the episode.
Right.
What that actually signifies, not sure.
Not sure.
But both of the people who saw it were in the clinic with the monster.
Yes. But neither of them were present when they actually cut him open. And this actually happens before they even cut him open.
Right, right.
So it's not like some people are saying, oh, these two characters have the worms now because of the autopsy. And, well, no, that's not the case. Is it literally airborne? Maybe.
Possibly.
But as far as this dream goes, a number of things here tells me it's not just a regular dream. And she'll eventually tell Christy about this dream. And you got to say, oh, maybe she heard Boyd talking about the music box. But here's the deal. It was the music box.
Yeah.
If she was just dreaming about the things he said, it wouldn't be the identical music box. It wouldn't look the same because she doesn't know what it looks like. She saw the music box in her vision dream. Other things that pointed out to me during her dream, the room was exactly the same.
Right.
If this was just a dream in her head, the room's not going to look identical. She's not going to remember all of these fine details, like which letters are missing on the alphabet along the wall, which I don't think we ever talked about. The letters missing on the wall are the letters in Victor's name.
Interesting.
Yeah, Victor are the letters missing. And, like, I hadn't caught that. Somebody on Facebook caught that. And I'm pretty sure what it means is Victor, at some point in his life, just took those tiles down to decorate his room or whatever, to spell out his name.
Right.
I don't think there's some, like, clue in it. I think literally Victor took them as a kid. But she's not going to know that. She's not going to have paid attention. And that's what I was looking at when I'm watching this scene is, oh, I was actually looking at the wall. The same letters are missing. And if it had been a dream, I think either the letters would be there or different letters would be missing because I don't think she is going to consciously know which letters are supposed to be gone if it was all her imagination.
Makes sense.
Another thing is when she saw Boyd, his hand is bandaged. You know,
she was not aware of that.
She had already gone to bed when that scene happened and he bandaged his hand up, which tells me, you know, this is a vision that's being imprinted on her. None of this is coming from her memory because otherwise she wouldn't see him that way that we saw him in the last scene.
Interesting. All right. So, Fatima finds Donna.
Who's stressed out again in the greenhouse. She keeps ending up in this greenhouse, struggling with these plants over the last couple of days.
She says they're dying and that the soil seems to be poisonous.
Yeah.
Fatima ends up telling Donna that she's pregnant. And Donna gets really happy. But Fatima is a lot more reserved about it.
Yeah, Donna's ecstatic. This is like the best news she's ever heard.
Fatima says that she can't have kids, that it is medically impossible, she was told.
Right.
Now, there were quite a few people on Facebook who were saying that this is because Fatima is transgender. More than one person was saying this.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's to be the case. There's other reasons why.
There's a lot of reasons that women can't have kids.
In fact, it's pretty common. Infertility is pretty common in women.
And here's my take on that. Why do you think Fatima's questioning is she pregnant and asking for a pregnancy test?
Right.
If she was transgender, that wouldn't even have been something she questioned.
Right.
She wouldn't have the reason to question that until, you know, like, oh, wow, there's a baby growing.
I'm not sure how the whole transgender surgery works. I don't really know,
I know,
but I don't know that you can get an active period from
exactly.
surgery.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Right.
So, obviously, the reason she's questioning this is she missed her period. I mean, there's no other reason for her to question it at this point.
Right. Yeah, so she was told that she couldn't have kids, that it's medically impossible. And she thinks that this is another way to torture her in this place. And Donna has this Joker laugh.
She just really breaks out in total laughter. And
it freaked me out.
Fatima's like, what's happening right now?
Right. She said, Donna goes on to say that there are plenty of unbelievable things that happen in this town. They see monsters, they climb into trees.
They've all been bad. Yeah, and so she tells, this is her sharing Boyd's story for the first time. You can tell Fatima hasn't heard any. She says, if you believe Boyd, there's evil trees that trap you in dungeons.
Right.
I think she missed the point of that story a little bit.
Right. Did she? I didn't think Boyd told her that part.
Boyd had told her about the tree.
Okay.
Oh wait, yeah.
I don't recall that conversation.
She didn't know about Martin.
Right.
Ooh.
So that's
a point against Donna right there.
Right. At the same time,
I think we need to go back and watch that scene where he was talking to her.
So a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, Donna's acting calm in the scene." No, she isn't. She's acting like a maniac in this scene. She's acting very manic in this scene. And they were saying that that's the reason why they thought that she was the mole or whatever.
Right.
I didn't buy it from that perspective, but she didn't hear that story from Boyd.
Unless he did share more with her off screen, which is always possible.
Possible, yeah.
But no, she wasn't involved in those scenes where he was like telling people like the full story from what we saw.
Right.
But yeah, I thought it was funny that she was like, evil trees that trap you in dungeons.
Right.
The trees aren't evil. You just happen to land in a bad place in that one.
Right.
I'm pretty sure these trees could be really helpful if we like start learning how to use them. And I think Victor knows a whole lot more about how to use them. And I think we need to get there because maybe one of these faraway trees will actually get you out of this place.
Maybe.
It's totally possible, I think. But yeah, she says, all of these really bad impossible things, this could be an impossible thing that's good.
Right. She met the love of her life here in Ellis, and now she's going to have a baby.
That she didn't think she could have. And she says this line about how a miracle is just the other side of a nightmare.
Good line, by the way.
Which reminded me an awful lot of, Fatima's discussion with Julie her first night here.
Yes.
About looking out the window and, she's something like if you're high enough, even a nightmare can look like
you can
a
see
dream
the beauty or something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So it was pretty comparable to that statement. Kind of like, giving Fatima some of her own optimism back.
Which she's been severely missing this season.
Yeah.
Fatima asks, "What if you're wrong?" And Donna comes back with, "Well, what if I'm right?"
Right.
Oh, touche. That's a good comeback there. Okay, so we cut back to Jade and Tabitha.
Yep. And they're getting along very well.
Yep. Jade explains his own visions and talks about Christopher. And Tabitha ends up talking about the ghastly children.
Yeah, and about Thomas.
Yes.
She shares that information.
And Jade is like, "Wow, I'm really sorry."
Yeah, they have some real heart-to-hearts here. Mm-hmm. They're sharing information.
Right.
Great stuff happening.
Mm-hmm. And Tabitha goes to leave. And
something amazing happened.
Ah?
He thanked her for her help.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
He says, Thank you for helping me.
Showing manners. My Jade is growing up.
This is the most human I think we've ever seen Jade in this moment. Actually responding with care to her story about Thomas and then thanking her for her help.
Right.
And again, on third view, I'm like, yeah, I see something there.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
I think, if Jim gets eaten, I'm all for Tabitha and Jade getting together.
Okay. I'm not quite at the point where I'm wishing death on Jim quite. I mean, he made me angry in this episode, but I don't feel that way about him quite yet.
I said if it happens.
Gotcha.
So yeah, then she goes to leave.
And she notices the Book of Symbols. And she absent-mindedly brings up the tunnels.
Yeah, so all this sharing they've done, the tunnels didn't come up.
Right.
So that's the problem is, even now characters want to communicate with each other, they still don't know what to tell each other.
Right. Yep. And Jade naturally asks, "What tunnels?"
Yeah.
And I don't think we even see them for the rest of this episode.
Yeah, no, we'll pick back up on that, I'm pretty sure, in episode 8.
Yeah, I saw the preview for that. They are definitely going towards the tunnels.
Yeah, which is, where he found her last time.
Yep.
That cave exit.
We cut back to Ethan and Victor.
Measuring the trees.
Yep. Victor notes that the trees are changing. He says the changes are usually bad.
And we're talking about the falling leaves now.
Right. But Ethan asks, or says, really, well, what if it's a good thing?
Well, at first Ethan's confused, like, well, what are you talking about? The trees always fall. Like, the leaf, that's normal. Like,
right.
And Victor's like, it's not normal here. Like, it's always the same here. And Ethan, he's a smart kid. He's like, oh. He realizes exactly what Victor's saying then. Like, no, we don't normally experience seasons here. And yeah, so Ethan, always optimistic, is like, well, if it never happened before, maybe it's a good thing.
Maybe. Lots of optimists in this episode.
And Victor looks like he hadn't thought about that. He thinks maybe just the look on his face, like, oh, maybe it could be something good. I hadn't thought about that because just like the conversation with, Fatima and Donna, everything's always bad. But maybe something good could happen.
Yeah.
We don't know.
You never know. We cut to the autopsy, and Boyd and Christy end up looking up towards the sound, and once you know it, it's Kenny returning.
Kenny came back. They're about to remove the sternum. He got there just in time for the gory goodness of it all.
Yep, he puts on the gloves. Nobody says a word about it.
Right.
Nobody's like, oh, glad to have you back. They just matter-of-factly accept that he's there.
Which is, I think, appropriate. Like, that's realistic, I feel, after where they all left things.
They removed the rib cage, and Christy is surprised to realize that the monster has human biology.
Yeah, she says it's human, or at least it used to be. Now, I'm taking that confirmation. These monsters used to be human.
The organs are all shriveled, like something you would find in a museum. There isn't any fluid, which starts to make Christy uneasy.
She's upset because she thought, I'm going to harvest the blood, we're going to get the worms, and we're going to have a weapon. And she goes off, if there's no blood, where the heck are the worms? There has to be something positive out of this. And she can't see it right now. All she sees is this, like, dusty, dried up corpse.
Right.
And she gets really upset, and she starts kind of beating into the chest cavity. Like, she's stabbing him over and over.
And Boyd and Kenny are trying to calm her down. And then Kenny notices a yellowish substance coming out. And he asks about it. And Christy confirms that that's actually bile.
Yeah, she punctured the gallbladder. Bile leaks out, and we get the line, bile is something.
Right? Yeah. And says, oh, whoa, you did a great job here. I was wondering at this point if Boyd was just using this as an excuse to calm her down.
Of course,
if he actually thinks that this is anything.
I mean, it's liquid.
Right.
Right? And they have no idea, are the worms in the bile, but it's the best they got right now.
Right.
So they get some kind of glass jar with a dropper to collect the bile. Which seems really gross.
Yeah. Yeah, but whatever. They have gloves on. All right, so we cut to Elgin and Julie.
Yeah,
they're at a dried up pool.
They're at the swimming pool.
Right. Have we ever seen that before in this series?
Yes.
We have. Okay.
I don't think anybody's we haven't had a scene at the pool. Okay, so this is the pool. It's right off of the side of the street. It's where the sign is for the motel that doesn't exist.
Okay.
So there's a sign. You see it in like the opening. And when we're driving down the streets, you see it.
Okay.
So there's a sign that in when Victor was a kid, we could see it was I think Star Magic was the name of the motel. And in the current day, that sign's missing. So there's an empty slot, and then it just says motel. So the name of the motel is missing. There's a sign for motel. The pool's right next to it with a car upside down in the pool. So there's a car inside the pool, which I don't think we saw in this shot. We must have just been on the further end of the pool. A pool that we got to assume belonged to this motel. Oh, yeah, because the motel sign says pool with it, too. It's like motel, pool. There is no motel.
Right.
And all season 1, I was like, where the heck's the motel? It has been confirmed. I saw, and I think I showed you this, a video that Epix had posted last year on Twitter about the making of the town and building these sets. And one of the actors, I forget who, specifically said in that video how creepy it is that they've got, like this motel sign and no motel.
Right.
There is no motel.
Gotcha.
Which I think leans to one theory that, the whole town was just kind of generated to look like a town. Kind of think of like, AI, you have AI pictures generated, and they kind of resemble things in real life, but at the same time are like really freaky and not quite right.
That might fit into the simulation theory for sure.
Or like any theory that this town was built, whether it's all, electronic or whether it was built by aliens or monsters physically or whatever, that it was just designed to look like a town. But it's not quite right. So you've got this pool and this sign, but not the building that they would actually be there to support.
Right.
But yeah, that's the pool. So it's got just a little bit of water in it, and we can remember that they just had that big storm a couple days ago. That's where that water came from.
Gotcha.
And on the other side of the pool is that car which I'm guessing we can blame Victor, who moved all of those cars 40 years ago.
Right.
Putting
I think you brought that up.
A car in the pool.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. And remember, Elgin's been he's asked about water before. The fact that this is where they walk to, I think he's still kind of fixated on water. And, even we'll get more water later with him.
Yeah.
Something about the water, right? So when they went to the Brundles, he went to the Brundles with Fatima a couple episodes ago. He was asking, and he said, yeah, I saw this in my dream. And we learned in this scene he doesn't remember what he can't remember, but it's definitely water is the importance.
Yep.
And I want to know, why haven't they fixed this pool up to use it? Because it seems like a better place to swim than the Brundles.
I was thinking about that. I mean, they have running water.
So they have running water, just like they have electricity.
But they probably don't.
There's a house right next door to it. There's got to be a hose somewhere, or something you can use as a hose.
At the same time, they probably don't have chlorine or really the ability to maintain it so much.
Just fill it with water and go swimming.
Okay, all right, gotcha. Yeah, so they end up talking about the dead monster, and he tells Julie that she can't say anything to anybody.
He did a really poor job of keeping this secret.
Yes.
So he's completely confiding in her. And made her promise not to tell. Yeah, because he doesn't want Boyd pissed off at him.
Right. Who does? Julie says that this is good news. So what's the problem? And Elgin says he feels like he's supposed to remember something, but he can't. He's not even sure if what he's supposed to remember is even real. And Julie, she relates to this. Everybody in town relates to this. Like, she starts to talk about how, maybe this is the day that I don't go insane.
Yeah.
And she ends up saying that you were going to say something.
Oh, he's totally flirting with her.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you seem pretty together to me.
Yep. And she's like, really? Well, you must be in really bad shape then. She ends up suggesting that
a trick that she does.
Yeah, that take a bath where she sinks into the water.
So she says, when she needs to relax, she takes a bath and she sinks down low so the water is level with her ears and it sounds like the ocean, and she just relaxes there. And this just reminded me sensory deprivation tanks. Okay, which specifically reminded me of Fringe. Did you watch Fringe?
I did watch Fringe.
Okay,
yeah,
so
great series.
Right in season 1, we start with a sensory deprivation tank where they put a character in there to try and remember things that are locked in her head. So this is a real scientific thing that this is based on, the idea of just kind of shutting out your other senses so you can really focus on what you're trying to focus on. And I felt like that's kind of the concept they're going with. If your ears are underwater, you're going to be able to block out what's around you right now.
And Elgin then makes this comment that he doesn't take baths. Now, there was a commenter on Facebook that was like, well, that's a really weird way to take your shot. Admit that you don't take baths. I thought that was kind of funny.
Most people don't take baths.
Yeah.
Most grown-up people don't take baths.
Yeah, they take showers.
Especially men, I think.
Well, women are more prone to
take a bath for relaxing,
yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think most men don't take a relaxing bath. At least not on a regular. And,
right.
Yeah, so I didn't find anything weird with him being I don't take baths.
Right.
It doesn't mean he doesn't clean himself. It means he takes showers, okay?
Julia said, Julia being my daughter.
I hope she didn't say anything. She's not watching From, is she?
No, she's not. Though, I don't know, at this point, she's 10 years old, and she's watched worse, so I think she could probably handle it.
I know you and I would have both been watching things way worse than this when we were 10.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember watching Die Hard when I was around that age, and, that's where they get shot up and gore, and anyway.
Yeah. I was watching Friday the 13th, which was the other thing that this discussion reminded me of, and when we get to see this played out later in the episode, reminded me of as well.
Which is this very shirt that you're wearing. You got that.
I do.
I do. Your Follow Your Dreams Freddy Krueger shirt.
Yeah, my Freddy Krueger shirt on. So in Friday the 13th, the original, there's this scene where Nancy, the main character, goes to take a bath and she sinks down into the tub and she falls asleep. Freddy Krueger, of course, being, gets you in your dreams. As soon as she fell asleep in the tub, sunk down in the water, just like Julie's describing, Freddy Krueger's hand comes up and grabs her and a very memorable scene.
Yes.
So that was also in my head, in addition to the whole sensory deprivation thing.
All right, so Julie ends up saying that she doesn't know how to help him then.
Yeah,
and they're kind of
she doesn't have
laughing.
any other advice.
Right. Fatima goes to Ellis and starts to tell him that she's pregnant, but we don't get to see that.
Well, she says, I got something I have to tell you. And then we didn't get to see what they said, but presumably she finally told him.
Mm-hmm. We see Boyd and Kenny. Kenny says, hey, big day. And Boyd at this point is holding up
He's holding the vial of bile.
I don't know that Boyd actually thinks at this point that that's going to be at all useful.
Well, he thinks it's worth testing.
Right.
But Kenny says, how are we going to test it anyways?
Right. And Kenny, he asks, how are you going to test it? Is it even going to work? And Boyd's like, you know what? That's tomorrow's problem.
Yeah, let's make that a tomorrow problem. Let's just, be happy that we got through today. We're all still alive.
Right. Kenny starts to leave, and Boyd says, hey, if you want that badge back, you can have it back anytime. And Kenny says, I'll see you later.
Yeah, he doesn't bite. We're not there quite yet.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying last week. It's not perfect forgiveness at this point. They've made some progress, but they're not all the way back.
Yeah.
And they might never fully be back. I don't know that Kenny will ever fully trust Boyd again.
And my idea here is, if you want the badge back, great. Keep your new clothes, though.
Absolutely.
Do not go back to that old uniform, ever.
Yeah, that was very ill-fitting, and I think what his current wardrobe is way better.
You don't have to wear the uniform to play the part.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like Boyd does. We have a Mary and Christy scene. Mary tells her about the bad dream and the music box and says, hey, maybe your friend Boyd is passing me his bad dreams.
Yeah.
And Christy's like, well, I'll have to talk to him about that.
And one thing I noticed in this scene, which could be absolutely nothing, but Mary's wearing a tank top and she's sweating a lot, right? She sweat during this bad dream, and there's sweat like lines on her shirt, and it totally reminded me of the upside down trees that we see in the title. Really? The title card for the show where it says from, and we've got these upside down trees.
Yep.
Her shirt just looked like that to me.
Interesting.
I mean, that could be just nothing, but yeah, that's what I saw.
You never know. We cut to Elgin, who's taking Julie's advice. He's taking a fully clothed bath. Yeah. What is that about?
Okay, so here's my take on that. He doesn't take baths, right?
Right.
He's not taking a bath. But he's not trying to get clean. He's literally just trying to try out the sensory deprivation.
Still, wearing clothes in a bath is kind of uncomfortable,
well,
and especially when you get out and you have to deal with your wet, soaking ass clothes.
It's no different than going swimming.
I guess so, but you're not wearing the same regular clothes. You're wearing like a bathing suit or something.
He was wearing like pajama shorts and a t-shirt.
Okay.
So maybe he's just not comfortable.
Okay,
taking his clothes off.
Yeah, and he doesn't want us to see him taking a bath naked. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
He knows we're watching.
We all have our body issues, that's for sure. Suddenly, he's hearing the music box. He sees it. Something starts pushing him down, and then we start seeing this figure, this lady.
Yeah, which I've seen people call her a banshee.
Right.
So it's like she's dried up, freaky looking, scary lady.
And she's making these weird ass sounds.
Yeah, and just holding him under the water.
So
trying to drown him.
There have been a lot of scenes throughout the series that have been really tense and some scary ones, but nothing got me quite like this moment of seeing.
It was unexpected.
It was like,
what just happened?
That freaked me the hell out when I saw that.
Yeah,
and that's how the episode ends.
So
I did know her shirt.
At first, they kind of make it look like, oh, somebody's drowning him. Who is it? We're thinking it's a person. Then, oh, maybe it's a monster.
Yeah.
And then it's like, surprise, something new.
Right. And I noted the shirt. The shirt looks very similar to what Fatima was wearing.
So let's talk about it.
Fatima was wearing.
And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah,
so
that's where the episode
we can
ends.
go ahead and unpack some of this stuff. So, okay, a lot of people saying it's her. It's a future her.
When they were saying that initially, I was like, you guys are crazy. That wasn't Fatima. What are you talking about? But then I noticed the shirt on the second watch through.
Here's the deal. It is not the same shirt.
It isn't.
It's a similar style.
It is.
But it's definitely not the same shirt.
No, it definitely isn't.
The colors are different. The pattern's a little different. The neckline is cut different. It's not the same shirt. But it is something she might wear. It's a similar style. It's kind of a kimono style. Some people were suggesting Mrs. Liu.
Right.
Banshee's hair was a lot longer than her hair. So then Mrs. Lou's.
Mrs. Lou, okay.
So I don't think it's like some people are saying, oh, it could be her because it's a kimono. Well, it doesn't look like her unless she grows her hair really long.
Mm-hmm.
Other people were saying, oh, well, we have other characters with long dark hair, with Julie or Tabitha. So if you're saying it looks like somebody, it could look like them too.
Right.
Or it could just be something totally unrelated to a character we know.
Right.
We're kind of like, I feel like the fandom jumped on the bandwagon saying, oh, it's got to be a future version of somebody we know.
So now we saw the music box.
Yeah.
And when we saw the music box previously with Mary, that was a dream sequence. So
right. It was a vision dream.
This is another vision dream.
Maybe. It's a vision. I mean, I definitely think it's a vision. I don't think there's physically a banshee trying to drown him.
Right, okay.
I'm pretty sure it's a vision, maybe on cue with, Boyd being attacked by a Civil War soldier type of vision.
Right.
Or a straight out dream.
Right.
I saw some people speculating the reason he's got his pajamas on is because the whole thing's a dream. He never even got in the bathtub. I mean, that's possible.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, do I think it's Fatima? It could be.
Yeah.
I do think it resembles her.
Mm-hmm.
I
wasn't totally sold
but
on
I'm
that.
not committed to
right.
oh, that's Fatima.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I'm more apt to just think it's something we haven't seen yet at this point.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of steps missing if that's somebody we know.
Mm-hmm.
Which it could be. Is there timey-wimey stuff happening? Sure, there might be.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. I love a good time travel story. So what does it mean?
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I have no speculation of what this could be about.
Like, I don't know what that was.
Right.
Like,
is this related to his original dream?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Again, water. He seems to have a fixation on water. Is he remembering being drowned in his dream or somebody drowning?
Mm-hmm.
Is this drowning supposed to take place at the Brundles? Because he seemed to specifically recognize that area.
Yeah. That was my assumption, is that there's something bad that's going to happen specifically there.
Well, that's what I thought when we first went there, and he was like, I saw this place in my dream.
Yeah.
Music box, the worms.
Right.
What do we think about that?
Well, I'm wondering if
Elgin and Mary are both now having at least visions of a music box.
Right.
The music box.
I was kind of curious if the worms end up affecting the town now that they've been in a monster, and maybe this is a future version of somebody that's this dried upness is caused by the worms. So some character is going to end up this entity.
Okay, so you think that the monsters aren't dried up, that the worms did that?
Yes, I think so, actually.
But they didn't do that to Boyd. He had the worms for days at least.
Maybe this is a different thing now. Maybe it's become airborne.
Okay.
Because somehow or another, Elgin and Mary are
affected by something.
Yes, yeah.
And right, they were both witnesses to the whole neck thing.
Mm-hmm.
They were both physically present when they started touching the body and moving it.
Around, smiling. Yep.
But then Elgin cut out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So he wasn't around it for long. He definitely wasn't there when they were cutting him open, other than that initial neck cut was there.
And Mary wasn't really involved in any of that
So
either.
I guess the question is, are the other people that were there going to start experiencing the same thing? Christy and Boyd and Ellis.
Boyd has already been experiencing
it, but
the rest of them not so much.
Yeah. So I guess if it's something to do with them having exposure directly, those would be the characters we'd expect to see something happen with as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or is this completely unrelated to the fact that they just happened to be there when this happened with Smiley?
Right.
Could this be happening with anybody right at this point because of something in the air or something else?
Mm-hmm.
And I also got to remember that, like, some people are saying, oh, they're infected with the worms. Okay, Boyd first saw the music box before Martin gave him the worms.
Yes, we went over that pretty extensively.
So, like, maybe seeing the music box just makes you a candidate, not to use a lost word. I'm not trying to dig into that, but like you're up for maybe being the person that's going to get the worms.
Right.
Like you're on the radar for it for some reason.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know. They didn't see the ballerina.
Right.
Are they going to see her? Is the Banshee in the same playing field as the ballerina that comes out when the music box is there?
I was thinking that the ballerina and whatever this creature is that's going to exist in my nightmares for the rest of my life.
Somehow related?
Yeah, somehow.
I mean...
maybe even the same thing.
Martin told us, you have until the music stops playing, and then they come. And we thought they was the worms, but is it like these creatures that are somehow linked to the music box? Both the ballerina and the Banshee and whatever else is on that level of monsterism?
Yeah. Who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the end of this episode means.
Yeah.
Like, I'm clueless.
There's again, more questions.
Right.
Which we'll get to, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I have every confidence that we're going to answer all these questions. Few themes I'm seeing that played out throughout this episode. Okay, so first let's talk about the title of the episode.
Belly of the Beast.
Because every episode, there seems to be, like, multiple meanings to the titles, right? Both literal and figurative things that we can talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's the obvious thing where we're talking about Smiley.
Right, and we cut into his belly region, and we literally saw what's inside of him, which was pretty freaky looking, actually. The visuals on that were not not anything to skip over talking about.
No.
The visual effects team, like, they did some great stuff in this episode. Also, the belly of the beast. The other thing I was thinking of is, well, we're talking about Fatima's pregnancy.
That's the other place to go.
Could this be a reason, a foreshadowing that is saying Fatima is the beast?
Well, the belly. Oh, yeah. Okay, so
right, the belly of the beast. We're talking about something happening in her belly.
Right.
Is that a clue that maybe she is or will be a beast?
Right.
This beast specifically. Or that the baby itself is some kind of monster.
Maybe.
Like, could she be pregnant with the next Smiley?
Pops out and it's like, hey, I'm Smiley. Yeah, that'd be very Mork and Mindy.
Ugh. And the only other thing I came to real quick with the idea of belly of the beast is that we're talking about the caves. The caves came up. So the caves kind of, you can see the caves as like the belly of this town, right? This is the underside, and that's where the monsters live. So maybe just talking about how we know that Jade's going to go explore the caves. This is going to become a present thought beyond, whatever Tabitha and Victor knew already.
And so the preview suggested that Victor and Tabitha are going to have a scene together.
Yeah, and they go to the caves.
Where Victor is basically like, you shouldn't explore these questions because people who do don't come back.
Yeah.
So, I'm assuming that scene takes place before they go to the caves in that episode, but we'll see. Yeah.
So that's everything I came up with as far as the title goes.
Okay.
You got any other thoughts on the title?
No, I was thinking the obvious one, Smiley, and then I also considered Fatima, like what that meant for her, because maybe it was definitely a signifier that the baby is not going to be a good thing, unlike what Donna was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, she's trying to be reassuring and trying to be a friend, and trying to look for positivity. That is something that Fatima has been sorely missing almost all season long.
Well, we never know. They could have a great little baby, and maybe that baby is key to something.
Right.
That often happens in,
the Frumville version of Jesus.
These type of series where, where a baby born into it is important. Okay, so other themes that I saw throughout this episode, dryness.
Dryness, yeah.
Dryness. So the monster's insides are dried out. Okay. The leaves are drying and dying and falling off.
I'm kind of curious if the monsters look like that all the time, or if this is something new, or if it's because the monster died.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
But the leaves are also dry. And we mentioned that dry orange marker.
Yes.
Which could be absolutely nothing. But maybe there's something there. If nothing else, I was thinking, well, who did these markers belong to? And why is the orange one specifically dried out? And all the other ones seem to work fine.
Right.
So Victor, they obviously weren't Victor's until Ethan just gave them to him. He draws with crayon. But was there somebody else here in the past who also drew pictures?
Right. using orange markers.
Where are their pictures? One thing that has been alluded to in Victor's drawings is a fire.
Okay.
There's also been a flood.
Right.
Implied as well. So, I mean, two kind of opposite ends.
Is Noah's Ark anywhere in this? Or?
Maybe. But yeah, if he's drawn fires and floods and he draws things he sees, this has already happened. But then there's that whole idea of maybe things are repeating, so these could be happening again. But either way, like, is that why the orange markers dried up? Because somebody was drawing a fire?
Okay, maybe. It's curious because there was probably a boy. We talked about things being in cycles.
Yeah.
So there probably was a Victor in the past before Victor.
Right.
That maybe was drawing pictures using the marker that you're referring to.
Well, I doubt the markers are that old because I think they'd all be dry if they were over 40 years old.
I mean, people have.
I think the markers would have to be something more in between. Maybe they were Megan's markers even.
Yeah, maybe. Possibly.
Yeah.
That's sad.
So I don't think necessarily I'm saying, there's some clue with the fact that it was the orange marker, but it's something to remember that we were specifically talking about things being dry.
It's possible that
we've got this mention of the dry marker now.
It's possibly that Megan was in the same class as Victor.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And specifically that's why they were targeting her.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And why they seem to target kids, because there aren't any kids, so you have to believe kids kind of go first.
Mm-hmm.
And is it literally just because they're kids and they're easier to manipulate? Maybe not.
Right. Maybe they have a stronger perception, which is why the powers, the town, the forces at work go after these kids first.
Right. And the other common thing is bile and stomach acid, which are two different things, but they're kind of related body functions, right? So we have literally the bile being extracted from the monster.
Yes.
We have Mary who threw up some bile all over the floor.
Yeah, that was very pleasant.
Which was, she definitely threw up some yellow bile. And then we had Jade comparing Tom's alcohol to stomach acid.
Yeah.
Which, again, it's bile and stomach acid aren't quite the same thing, but I think they're closely enough linked that I can see that being a theme.
And what was that made out of again? That was made out of, potatoes
Potato
or something?
vodka, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, I don't know. I don't know what about it, but there seems to also be this recurring theme there.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about the contents of your stomach.
Gotcha. Interesting.
I saw somebody on Facebook post something about the four humoruses. There's bile, blood, phlegm, and it was this whole wheel of how they're linked to different seasons of the year and different body parts. And I mean, that all goes over my head. So I don't have anything to say.
I know nothing about that.
I have nothing to say about that, but it did seem like maybe a lot of these words are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about seasons and body parts and
Gotcha.
Fluids.
All right. So anything else?
That's all I have in my notes.
Okay. So we have 3 episodes left.
So next week we know, like you said, they're going to go into the caves. We got some indicator that something bad's going to happen. The fact that they didn't take care of that body.
Yes. There was definitely something in a preview.
So
about
Smiley is still
basement.
in the basement, and we get in the preview that something's going on in the basement. I definitely feel they're alluding to tell us something's happening with Smiley. It could be something totally unrelated, but
I don't.
There's a line in the trailer that says something along the lines of, "If something comes up the stairs, run." Right. So what could come up the stairs?
Maybe they should go down the stairs and check it out.
Is Smiley gonna come back?
Maybe.
Quite possibly. I said last week I don't think they're done with his story.
No.
We did this week get another scene with Jamie McGuire in a dream or vision.
Yeah.
And I feel like that could continue. We could continue to see Smiley in visions. Or is he physically coming back to being reanimated?
Did you see any indication about what time of day it was in the preview during that scene?
I don't know.
I thought I saw some light, but I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And who knows? That whole scene could be another dream.
Right. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. So I'm very curious to see where they're going with that, though. It looks like it's going to be some exciting stuff. And we're not done with the monster.
Nope. Yeah. So like I said, we have 3 episodes left before the finale. We're of course going to cover all 3 of those episodes. Then we're going to do a recap of season 2, where we go to probably do a similar thing to what we did with the Quantum Leap podcast, where we try to rank the episodes.
I don't know if I can do that with this.
I'm gonna try.
This is more of a continuous story.
Yeah, like every episode is pretty comparable quality wise.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean some episodes are better than others, but still, I might try it. We also are gonna try to do some additional From content in addition to going back to Quantum Leap, talking about that. Stacie, you want to talk a little bit about what we're trying to do?
Yeah, so we're definitely going to have some between season content, so we can all keep talking about keep talking about our theories going into season 3. Of course, any updates that we get along the way about a season 3, because that's still kind of questionable right now. What information is out there. We're working on lining up some interviews.
Yes, that's pretty exciting stuff.
Get some people on to talk to us about the things going on in this show. So we can look forward to that down the pipeline, and maybe we'll even do From trivia. I know we're working on Quantum Leap trivia, so maybe we'll. Yeah. I know we got a lot of active people on Facebook that would probably love to come do some From trivia with us.
And if you're one of those people and you're listening to this podcast, feel free to say something.
Yeah, anybody who wants to get involved, contact us, because we're going to be, like I said, doing some projects and having some fun time, and we'll continue the conversation even after the season ends.
Sounds like a good time. Do you have anything else to say?
I don't. I think we covered it all. We've been here for over 2 hours.
Yep. Pretty close to it.
And, about 2 hours. So, yeah, I think that's all we have to say until we get to see episode 8.
All right.
I can't believe we're there.
I know. It's been a blink, basically.
Yeah. That's the thing about this show is it's so good, but at the same time, it's like, over already?
Right.
It's hard to, I don't know. Time's been going weird lately.
Yeah. It happens when you get older. Or maybe we're in Frumville and we don't even know it.
Yeah.
All right. Stacie can be reached
I can be reached on Twitter at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join one of my Core Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as ourselves. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this podcast, as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.